Hey everybody, welcome back. Today I'm going to review this Master System Mega Drive converter, or Genesis converter for the Master System. This is pretty much what the power base converter does, so it's just a standalone little thing. So I'm going to show some of the gameplay. You can see Outrun here, looking great, playing fine. I found out that there's really nothing special about these converters. They're just a pass-through because the Genesis has a native support for Master System games. So that being said, I was like, well, I'd rather spend $15 on this than, you know, the $80 that most people are selling the power base converters for. So here we go. Here's a little Fantasy Star. So I'm just figuring I'll test out all the games. I looked up a list and there's only a few that are incompatible for different reasons. There's only one that won't play all together, but that's not a game I have. So I figured I'd test out compatibility, and for the most part, everything goes along really well. But wait till the end, because you're going to see I have an issue that I found out other people have, not just with these converters, but with Master System converters, the actual power base converter that they have. And I think I've discovered the solution, and I had not really seen anyone talk about it. I took a few hours looking around on the internet, and I couldn't discover the real solution that way. But and I posted on Reddit, and there was one guy that was nice enough to respond. I assume it's a guy, maybe it's a girl. There's one nice person that responded, and he suggested something because I had already figured out how to solve it, but it's a way I wasn't happy about. So we'll leave that for the end for now. But you can see here, everything's working. Here's a battery pack game. You know, it's working fine. I can do saves. I can do all that stuff on here. It's not a problem so far. So Fantasy Star works great. We got Streets of Rage here. And, I mean, again, no problems. It plays great with the Genesis controller. And that's one of the reasons I wanted this. Not to mention, my Master System's getting a little wonky. Towards the top of the screen, it's getting a little wavy. So I figure that thing may die, and if it does, I want to back up until I can get it recapped or something. So this was kind of a stopgap in case that thing does fail. And I just thought, you know, look, these things are online. It's the same one from all these sellers, so don't go spending $30. I seen one for $30, $25. It's the exact same thing. Get it from someone that's only selling it for $15. I spent $15 on this. Actually, one seller online was selling this 2 different times, and one was cheaper than the other. So look for the best price because they're all the same. This thing does have the pause button built into it too, which anyone that knows a few games out there require you to hit the pause to get into submenus, which is really a nuisance. It's too bad there wasn't some way to rework that through into the controller, but and maybe there is, but they're probably more expensive. Like I also saw after I bought this, I found out there's another version of this which actually has the FM chip built into it. And you know, while that was nice, after I saw it, the extra cost, I was like, well, what do I really care about the FM chip that much? You know, I'm getting by this far without it, so not a big deal. And just one more thing to probably go wrong. So here we go again. Here's a Sonic. Sonic looks great on here. No problems at all. I can't tell anybody that has not played with a Master System controller how much better it feels to play with a Genesis controller. It's just not as squishy or mushy. I don't know what the word would be for it, but also the accuracy on the pushes, left, right, up, down, and diagonal and stuff like that are so much better on the Genesis controller. I mean, part of playing Master System games is getting used to using that controller. Here we are, you know, everything's looking perfectly fine. Not a problem in the world so far. Everything I've thrown at it is just playing perfect. I think what happened too often is after I plugged in a game, I probably played it too long instead of just keep trying new things. But I just wanted to make sure that everything was going to work because this thing's a cheap knockoff. So But again, when I heard it's just a pass-through, how much does it really need to do? Here's a great game. Castle of Illusion for Mickey Mouse. Not as long as the Genesis version, but still super fun and varied. You know, it's not the same kind of remake, so it's really great to play this one. And again, it feels so much better. Oh, you know, I should add another little caveat here. You know, this is going through an AV cable. It's not RF. Not that RF looks very bad on this at all. When I discovered the problem on this, I went down a rabbit hole of finding out all the variations of the Genesis to see if it was this problem that will occur is because of this model. And maybe it is, maybe it isn't, because it seems sporadic, the people that have the issue. So mine ended up being like the second or third generation. I don't know what you'd say. It's the VA7 chip, and that's the one that doesn't have the description of high definition graphics on the casing. So I think it's like the third revision, which people say the sound chip in here is probably one of the worst. And I would agree, it's a little wonky. There's a lot more, maybe a little distortion and a little static and stuff in there. But it didn't bother me too much. What I did notice, though, was the graphics were pretty sharp anyway. So I ended up discovering that this chip is probably, or this chip set on here for this board, is probably the best for graphics out of all the Genesis models. So I was pleased to find that out. Here we got a Golden Axe Warrior, which I played through and was super fun. It's definitely easier than a Zelda game. A lot of the stuff is the same as far as the solutions in the dungeons, but I really was glad I played through this. This is one of the reasons I was really happy to finally find a Master System, because I heard about how great this game was. And then, I don't know, Alex Kidd and High Tech. I haven't played through this, but every time I play it, I don't know what the hell's going on. It looks just kind of like, it almost feels more like a point and click game. Like you got to go discover stuff, you got to talk to people, you got to do things. You don't do them in the right order, you know, it's not going to work. Maybe I'll watch a playthrough sometime before it. I don't know if I have the heart to just figure all this out. It's not my kind of game. There's all kinds of weird stuff. It's like, why am I ordering a pizza? Is this going to help me somehow? Was I supposed to do it some other time? I don't know. But you just pick up more and more details, and you're in this house, and you're going from floor to floor and opening doors, and evidently there's things that'll give you a game over, too. I don't know how many different ways you can just die in this, but it wasn't long before I discovered one of them, which isn't far away from where you start. So it's almost like it's set up just to kill you right away. And then you got to learn. I probably got to do something first before I can do this. But, you know, it's a game that came with the system when I bought it from somebody, so that's why I have it. I probably wouldn't have bought it otherwise, but I'm sure if I had all the time in the world and it was back in the late 80s, I'd have a blast. And here's Michael Jackson. You can see the colors look great. It's coming in super sharp. And, I mean, I like this. It looks like it's got a nice glow to it. Now, again, I don't know what the heck's going on with this Michael Jackson thing where he's turning into a car that can fly and then takes off flying. I don't know. Maybe he's a robot. In the end, he's got to go in and save kids. You got to open up all these doors, and you're just saving, you know, girls that are on the floor on their knees. I don't know. It's kind of weird. But they're children, and you're fighting off all these guys. And, you know, yeah, it's kind of repetitive, but they change it up. Eventually, the floors have gaps in them, you know, and then you can throw your hat. Eventually, you upgrade that. I don't know. It's just, it's as weird as Michael Jackson was. So this is getting close to where I first discovered the problem, because Rambo's playing great. And Rambo was probably the first game that I realized my Master System was having issues. I had to, when I got Rambo, it wouldn't play in the Master System. My other games would, but this wouldn't. It was all clean. I didn't know what was going on. And someone said, oh, when your cartridges, some don't work, it's probably some solder points and stuff. So I baked my card, kind of like we baked the old video cards in the old days if they would have failed. So I did that. I baked it in the oven and reflowed the solder. And this thing has worked perfectly. Rambo started working, and all my other games have been working great for probably the last 6 or 7 years. So here's where I start discovering I have a problem with this. I finally found some games that were not working, and then some work sometimes, but pretty consistently Rampage, R-Type, and Altered Beast. Yeah, those didn't work too well. There's others like this, like the Wonder Boy ones. These kind of work after a couple of tries. So again, I'm not sure if it's with my system is what's really causing the problem. Maybe this generation of Genesis is only what plagues people that have this problem. But not all the cartridges work. Now, don't get me wrong, they're going to work, but they don't work immediately. And here's showing the fact that the pause button does work on here. I wanted to test everything. I'm like, I know this game would need it. So here we go. I start testing, and I start finding out, now I'm kind of like, hey, I'm done playing games here and having too much fun. What's going on? I got to test all these out. So I'm like, okay, here's another one not working. Try and plug it in, try and clean it up a bit. Right now I'm doing this hot boot thing where I discovered that, sometimes if you boot up the system and then plug the cartridge in while it's hot, which I didn't like doing, there's a slight chance that you could fry your cartridge. So once this one started, this is where I realized, oh yeah, that's right, some games need the Master System controller because weird stuff like this will happen. So here it is. After doing research, figuring everything out, like I said, some nice guy on Reddit suggested not hot swapping, but cold swapping. And the cold swapping technique requires you do it pretty fast. So right now I'm just showing, like, look, these games aren't working. I can't boot them. They're not booting up on their own. But I'm going to try the cold swap option, which requires you to do it within a few seconds because there's probably some power still in the system. When the Genesis kicks on, it has to switch into master mode. I guess there's a, it's pin number 30 on the front end. It's an M3 pin, something like that. I went down this rabbit hole. That's the one that triggers it to know that it's a Master System game. What's funny is this thing doesn't have anything connected to it. It's just a dead pin. I opened it up, I reflowed and resoldered everything because I thought maybe there was something wrong with this, and that's why all the games weren't working. But I saw even that pin, the 30 pin on there, doesn't even connect to anything. But you see here, now I'm testing it out, and I'm like, okay, Outrun works. I noticed Outrun works every time. So I've got to swap it really fast. So Outrun triggers it to go into Master System mode. But if you don't do it quick enough, so here we are. Let's try again. I got to do it really fast. I got like 2 seconds usually. Sometimes it lasts a little longer. So it's whatever's discharging for power in the system. Excellent. Here we go. That's working. There's there's capacitor stuff in there that once the power's off, they kind of discharge. And depending on how long they take, if you put a Master System game in here, see, if I wait long enough, the system discharges and it can't pick up that a Master System game's here. So I've got to go back to putting in one I know that triggers it all the time right away. And that's Outrun. Outrun worked the best. So I popped that in, and I was hot swapping it for a little bit before, but I didn't want to do that. So now I shut off the power and pop it out, pop the other one in, trying to get it done in under 2 seconds. And there we go. Now, I'm not saying it's always 2 seconds. There's sometimes you can have up to 3, 4, or 5 seconds, and it still works. So right now I'm testing, like, see, I shut it off. I'm counting to 2, counting to 4, still coming on. Now I'm going to count to 5 or 6, give it a few extra seconds. And it's discharged, and it does no longer remember that it was in a Master System state. So that would require, see, it doesn't come on again. turn it off, turn it on, nothing. That requires doing the cold swap. Now, you can do a hot swap, but I don't suggest it because you can fry your cartridge. So I like this cold swap where you do it. You know, you got to be sure you don't smash up your... you don't want to smash up your cartridge because those things go in there a little rough. But hey, Bob the editor here in the future. I discovered during some of my footage that I had this totally wrong. It's not about being in Master System mode, and it's not about Master System cartridges. It's about any cartridge, which could solve other problems too. But what I discovered is I had R-Type kick in one time by fluke, but it was after I had a Genesis cartridge in, and it was a few more seconds after. It was like a normal time you'd pull a cartridge out and put a new one in. So for whatever reason, and I've tested this a few times, there's a much more generous window, which isn't a lot of time, but it's a lot easier than the Master System swap to use a Genesis cartridge. So if I have a Genesis working cartridge in there, and I know I've got a non-working Master System cartridge through the converter, I put a Genesis cartridge that's working, power off, pull that out, put the other cartridge in with the Master System converter, and power up, and it comes on, like every time. This could also solve some problems for people that may have Genesis cartridges that don't work. I don't have any Genesis cartridges that don't work, so I can't test this theory. But if anyone out there wants to test this theory, if you have a cartridge that stopped working and you don't know why, I would say try this cold swap option for Master System or for Genesis on this. You know, plug in a cartridge you know that works, power it off, unplug the good working cartridge, and plug another one in pretty quickly, within, 3, 4, 5 seconds at the most. Preferably if you could do it in under 2 seconds, you'll know for sure if it's working. And if that cartridge comes on again, you'll know that it's not the cartridge that's bad, it's some signal that's processing from the Genesis to the cartridge that's not working. And if you can trick the system into a state of thinking it has a working cartridge in it, by putting in a working cartridge and then powering off, and before it totally discharges, swapping a cartridge that doesn't seem to normally work and see if it boots up. I'm sure someone else out there has done this before and figured it out. I don't see anything on the internet about it, and maybe it's just the way Google sucks now and that I'm not finding the answer, but I'm sure as heck glad that this has led to this resolution for me, because sometimes or someday I'm going to buy another cartridge that's not going to work right away or something, or I'm thinking it's going to be dead, and I'm going to try this first before giving up on that cartridge now. So, well, there you go. Hey, this turned out to be a very interesting thing for me. It might not be that interesting for you because you may not be having any problems, but for anyone out there that's having issues with cartridges booting that are finicky and don't always boot the first time, maybe you got to turn it on 3 or 4 times, 5, 6, maybe it never works, try this cold swap option. And I hope this helps you out. And I hope the time I put into figuring this out over the last couple of days benefits somebody. And thank you again to the guy on Reddit that kind of had this cold swap option thought, because I was getting things to work in a different way, but I didn't want to do it with hot swapping because, again, it seems just a matter of time before you could fry a cartridge. It might take 100, may take 1,000 times, but someday it's going to happen. So I hope you had fun watching this video. I hope you learned something new, and we'll see you next time. So long, everyone.